Xbox, the Box and Xbox podcast. My name is Potato, and I'm with my good friend, Alex.
Hi. My pronouns are she, they, and this is a special, Starfield episode, because I think most of it is going to be about Starfield. So if you're not into Starfield, but you like Xbox, then you could wait another week.
Or you could just leave us running in the background, and just, if you're not interested in listening to what we're going to say, that's fine. Just leave us running so we get the watch time. Don't leave. Don't do that. That'd be bad for it. But yeah, this is our basically Starfield Spectacular. Ooh. Well, basically all the news is Starfield. Everything Starfield. Everything is Starfield. We love this game, and we'll talk more about it. During the show. And if an hour or so of us talking about Starfield today is not enough for you, we also have our secondary podcast, Space Skyrim, a Starfield podcast, which we have going up weekly as well for the next couple of weeks until people are bored of Starfield, and then we'll move on to something else.
Or we run out of things to say about the whole game, because there's pretty much plenty of talk about, because apparently I was having low expectations first, then eventually I'm just got hooked, really.
I'm hooked, I love it.
Because the thing is, this is this is by far it's let's put it this way, is that Starfield is pretty much another Bethesda game, which is a good thing, which is also the worst thing about it, because it just if you have all the annoyances with it, you'll definitely get the same in this whole game, just with a little different theme. If you've played Fallout, if you've played Elder Scrolls, you know what you're getting. It's essentially the same game, just a different setting, which I'm totally cool with. I prefer this. I'm a sci-fi person. I love sci-fi, so this is the perfect setting for me. I'm loving this so far. We will talk about our first impressions, and I think I maybe give our review scores as well. And later on in the episode, we have a lot to cover. So first off, we're going to start off with our usual opening topic, but it's going to be very brief. It's what we've been playing. Starfield. Next topic. Yes, we already discussed about that.
Basically, all we've both been playing is Starfield ever since it came out. I've become obsessed with it. You've become obsessed with it. I want to talk more about it. So I don't know if there's anything else. Have you played anything else apart from Starfield? I don't think I have. I think that's literally it for me.
I've been looking into Halo Infinite, and then to check up on the store. And I thought, interesting parts, but there's literally nothing there, so I can just go back to Starfield. So I'm just having a lot of fun with it. But yeah, as you say, it's probably best to save for the first impressions.
We've got one piece of news that is not Starfield related, and then we got a load of reviews and stuff to go through, so that's going to be fun. Our non-Starfield related review, even though it's still Bethesda, the Fallout TV show is based in Los Angeles. It'll be based in Vault 33. And the first piece of art that they have shown for the game was made by an AI, and everyone is pissed off because they're not paying actual artists to make.
And that's why
the TV show.
That's part of the reason why there's strikes going on, and it's not to do with people not being paid enough, but they also they also have an issue with AI, which seems like, oh gosh,
the dog's licking me. Thanks for distracting me. I'm trying to talk. AI is an issue. Even though I adore AI covers and stuff, I love listening to Frank Sinatra singing "Basket Case" by Green Day and stuff like that. I adore that. I like SpongeBob singing rock music and Cartman singing club music. I love all that stuff. But then there is the dark side of AI, which is they're stealing people's jobs, which is unfortunate, which is really sad, and it took our jobs.
Well, actually, it just takes away the creative input from people, and I would definitely. I'm actually leaning more into getting rid of jobs, but the fact you're enjoying all this AI stuff, right in this whole podcast, is probably gonna receive some hateful comments and dislikes because you support AI in some degree.
Not really. I mean, if you listen to Goku and Vegeta singing "We Don't Talk Anymore," and that song is fantastic. It's really sad, but it's like so dramatic because it's those guys singing. I just like listening to to cartoon characters and all that singing AI songs. It's hilarious. It's like the funniest thing ever. But apart from that, I'm not super into the AI. Oh, and I did do a bit of AI generation when that was like a fad. Like you put like a term into the search and then they generate pictures for you, but they never turned out that great. That's why I was like, oh, AI's not going to take over. This is shit. Nothing ever turned out that good. I put Master Chief holding a potato and it just came out like it's like not good. So I mean, I did use an AI image for one of our thumbnails a couple of months ago, but then you decided not to use that one, which is fair enough because we decided to use something else instead. But yeah, AI, it's the future. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Let us know in the comments below. In some ways it's great, in other ways it's not. So it's a bit like.
So for context here, we're talking about the news where a piece of art, isn't it a Los Angeles teaser image there?
Yes, this is a Los Angeles teaser image for Fallout TV show. So they've only shown one piece of image from the TV show, and it's an AI generated image, which is like, ooh. I mean, like for small teams. Like a small independent team or whatever, having AI to help like mitigate stuff, make stuff better, that's brilliant. But when it's like a massive studio, like who billions of pounds into a project for Fallout, and they can't just hire an artist to do it, that's where I'm like, ugh, that's tacky and gross. You know, that's the line. I think it's like if you can afford it, to afford to hire people, you should, because it'll be always a better quality than what the AI can do. Personally, but that's just my opinion.
Well, I think I pretty much prefer the use of AI for non-commercial purposes. Like once you start using it in products, it just means like it just says that I prefer to use AI instead of like using people there. And I just feel as if corporations are going to use it as a means to cutting down the personnel workforce. And I think this is actually a really frightening thing to do of some sort.
It's the start of Skynet. We're all gonna die. All the Terminators take over and just kill us all.
It does mean like getting rid of companies too. Like
that's good. I don't mind that. Have all the robots killing like all the Apple staff and all that, like the Apple taking over Apple. I don't mind that. Robots take over Apple or Amazon. Bad, yeah.
They already use like
it should help.
They're already using drones to deliver Amazon parcels for years.
Yeah, true. I mean, for you, like, you know, production is always changing, isn't it? It's like stuff's getting like more automated, but day by day when it comes to everything, isn't it? You know, and like people used to send letters, and now people send emails, and like a lot of stuff's done digitally, and there's no store for it. Like technology makes it like the workforce change on a constant basis, you know. And luckily, there are some jobs that computer just can't do, which is fortunate because that means that people can still have a job. But it is worrying, I must say, that they like a big company. I can't remember who's funding this game and this TV show now, but there's a big company doing it when Microsoft's backing and they can't afford to get an artist in just to do a simple Fallout image. It's kind of worrying. That's a bit upsetting to me. But apart from that, I'm excited for the TV show still, and we'll discuss it more when it comes out. So that is the only non-Starfield related news. So our first big news item, this is pretty much going to cover the whole show, I imagine, is the review roundup. Woo!
Yes.
You've handpicked, 6 reviews?
Well, 7 reviews, actually, because
7,
I've been going through a bunch of reviews from Metacritic, which in the moment, it has a average score of 87 from both PC and Xbox. For Xbox, it's like 86, because you predicted like about 96, and I predicted like 94.
No, I predicted 94. You predicted 96.
Oh, did you?
Don't throw me into the mess. I wrote it down on the notes.
But
yeah.
Did you check the playback the video and just mentioned about who predicted it?
Well, I wrote the notes down at the time, and I've still got the notes up on my phone, so I'm assuming that's correct. If it's wrong, let us know in the comments below. What do you think the Metacritic score will be for Starfield once it is released?
96.
I'm going to go 94. We're both like 94 or 96 when it was 86. It's disappointing. I'm a bit pissed off that it's only 86, to be honest. I'm really shocked and annoyed, and I'm going to rant about the IGN review in a minute because that's really annoyed the shit out of me. I don't understand how some publishers. We'll get into detail now, but I just don't understand how anyone could give this a 7 out of 10. I'm sorry.
To be honest,
you're out of your goddamn fucking mind. I'm sorry, but you are. Something fucking wrong with you.
Before you go on to your rant, at least it's better than like Redfall, because Redfall is much worse. But I think the thing is, it's still a good game. It's still within the 80 range, so it's not like it's complete crap. And besides, I've been playing the game for a while, and even if it's a bit bleak, it still like has a lot to do, and I still play it. So, and it's just why it's really disappointing that critics have like, no, it's the kind of things you expect in the Bethesda game, but they still like slag it off for like, just trying to get this. They just kept slagging it off for the whole thing.
Because I was trying to remember what the name of that shooter was. It's just come out. That's like the fantasy shooter. Like something of Avium or something. That everyone says is rubbish. Avium or something. Something of Avium, I think it was called. And it's made by the Call of Duty devs. Anyway, everyone says that game is rubbish, but it got an 8 out of 10 on IGN. So how's that got an 8 out of 10, but Starfield's got a 7? It doesn't make sense. I love Pentiment, but I love the idea of Pentiment, and I've not actually got into it. That got a 10 out of 10. There's so many games I just understand how the ratings work in IGN. I don't know how this got a 7 when there's some games that get 8s and 9s. And I'm going to say it's better than God of War Ragnarok. I don't care. I know that sounds like a fanboy thing to say, but it is.
But speaking of which,
perfect scores.
David Jaffe, the director of God of War, has praised Starfield and have been playing it for over a day. So it's good, but expect some like Sony-centric critics to like praise this as well. So I think it's just, I like to think as if many people who support PlayStation would also wish Starfield to be on it. But so far, Starfield is pretty much exclusive to Xbox and PC. So if you don't have Xbox, you can play it on PC, where you can have sweet 60 frames per second, provided if your graphics card is like latest one.
Yeah. And if you have a really good SSD, the loading screens will be even quicker. But I don't think, I mean, we'll cover that in later on in the view, but the reviews. A lot of people's main, I mean, we'll go into it now. Really, I just like a lot of people's main criticism with the game is it's not very seamless from going to like planet to space to another planet and all that. There's a lot of fast travel and stuff, which I'm like, but I'm fine with it. Because it's like, okay, there's lots of loading screens, but they're like literally what, 3 seconds, 4 seconds.
Well, you do have cutscenes as well, so I don't think you can skip them. Like if you're using
but they're not very long.
No, why?
I'm quite happy with it. I'm like, and then it's like people are like complaining about loading screens and stuff, and I'm like, do you remember playing Skyrim when it came out? I remember like getting a 3D, like they give you a 3D model on the screen which you can rotate, and it has like a bit of text on the side. And the loading screen was literally about 2-3 minutes going into a cave and coming out of a cave on the Xbox 360, and people are like, and now people are like, oh, that game was a masterpiece, 10 out of 10. But when Starfield gives you a 3-second loading screen, it's like, this is garbage, 7 out of 10. It's like, come on now, it's ridiculous. It's like our standards have obviously changed in the last 10 years, obviously. But I don't mind the loading screen.
Well, bear in mind that there's a bunch of Jim Christian reviews, and it's just like, and you never guess what Jim Stephanie Sterling has said like that. She just like showing a bunch of glitches and say like, oh, the incompetence is a problem. But what is really bad is to say it's just another bad Bethesda game.
I haven't had any. I've had one issue. I've had one glitch the whole time I've been playing it. The whole first week I've been playing it. So
I found a bunch of glitches in it, but then none of it which is game breaking. Although my Xbox did crash like twice. Once when I was trying to get to the lounge and got stuck on a loading screen for too long, and then when I fast traveled from one planet to another planet, it just crashed back to the dashboard.
Didn't you say you'd been trying to cheese the game though, trying to break it, like on purpose?
Well,
And before the podcast, you said you wanted to cheese it.
well, at least cheesing doesn't exactly involve in like doing a lot of fast travel, though.
No, it's true. It's I mean, the game has a lot of fast travel. I get that, but I'm still enjoying it. I don't know. I could. It's not a perfect game by any means, but I still really enjoyed it. So should we maybe go through the reviews? Well, so you've got a big list of reviews here,
yes.
Bullet points. Should we start off with the most divisive, the most controversial review of them all? The IGN review, 7 out of 10. Boo! Too much space. Too much water in space. Too much space water.
I'm just going to go through this review, and I'm taking some highlights off it. So, IGN, I think it's a bit scathing compared to Gamespot, which is the next one. But it just seems like as if they had so many hours and playing with it, there's a lot of friction to it. So it just begins with, even when it's mostly righting the ship and other stuff in the story, side quests and launching boarding parties and enemy ships, there were still too many problems that constantly popped up, forcing me to curb my excitement.
Okay, again, I've had one glitch this whole time, so I don't see that at all, but keep going.
Even if after about 70 hours, there are major quest lines that I haven't even touched. Granted, it's nowhere near as precise and lifelike as motion capture performances we see in The Last of Us and God of War, but it's on par with other big RPGs where you interact with hundreds of NPCs for dozens of hours, like Baldur's Gate 3. And it's just like,
that's bullshit.
Yeah, because
so The Last of Us, the God of War, are essentially movies. Essentially, you got like 5 characters. You can animate their faces, and they use like points on the face, and they literally scan someone's face. Whereas this has all been done by like they got like an AI doing all these voices and thousands and thousands of voice lines, different dialogue, different. I think the facial animations are great, especially considering it's been like mass produced over thousands of characters. I think that's bullshit. That's a really bad criticism. And you skipped over the side quest. I've spent 70 hours and I've still got major quest lines to do. Why is that a bad thing? I don't understand. I'm sure like you got loads to do in the game. That's a good thing, right? I don't understand that at all.
Well, this just assumes like, oh, I've been exploring everywhere, and it shows like I'm not interested in the major quest lines, but it just seems like, well, you should be able to check out the main story and other quest lines to see if they're good. But if you just go exploring this whole thing and then you review the game with 7, it's just like, what's the point?
Well, you've not finished the main quest line. I've heard other reviewers say that the main quest took them about 20 hours to do. So if you haven't finished the main quest, then I don't respect your review. I'm sorry, you haven't finished the game. So I'm going to respect your 7 out of 10 there. I'm sorry, you haven't even finished the game there. So
not to mention the people doing reviews and gameplay footages are such terrible players anyway. So
yeah, I mean, I think it's the guy who wrote this review was called Dan Stapleton. I think that's who it was. I don't know him. He might be a nice guy. I just don't think this is a very good review. I'm just gonna be honest, and I'm allowed to have an opinion. He probably thinks that I'm an idiot because like, oh, who's this guy? Some random YouTuber. But you know, it's like I personally don't agree with a lot of the stuff he says. But let's keep going. Let's keep going. There's so much to cover.
The biggest fundamental contradiction within Starfield's design is that while this is a galaxy-spanning adventure with literally hundreds of worlds you can land on and explore, it can feel extremely small when each of them is separated by little more than a thankfully brief loading screen. While you can walk across the Elder Scrolls or Fallout world without ever fast traveling, in Starfield you can't go anywhere without fast traveling.
Necessarily true. I mean, as I was saying earlier, like love Skyrim, love Fallout, but how often do you walk into a building or you go into a cave or something and there's a loading screen in Elder Scrolls or Fallout? There's loading screens everywhere in Elder Scrolls and Fallout. Has he forgotten those games? Like, have you not played those games recently, mate? Like, those games are full of loading screens. And okay, fine. Yeah, it's not as seamless as I would like. I would like it to be more seamless. I do think it is a downside, but I personally, for the like loading into a house in Skyrim or loading up to a giant planet. I think I can forgive loading a planet a bit more than loading up a house. To be honest, it's like it's a massive planet you're exploring here, and you only have to hit one massive loading screen. I don't understand the issue, and it also. You see you flash travel everywhere. You could just literally drop yourself on a planet, just keep walking for ages and ages and ages.
Well,
it'd be boring and then there'd be nothing to do, but you don't have to fast travel all the time.
Well, actually, the maps you go into for the planet are procedurally generated. Yeah. So you're just like, so even if you just like drop into the whole world, you just only like have a few things to do, and then you have to go through the loading screen to go somewhere else to generate new structures and everything. Also, bear in mind that planets can only hold at least 4 landing zones, so you do have to go through so much maps and lots of loading screens. But even if you stay in the whole world, there's certain landmarks that there's no loading screens where you interact with those. Or if you go into some stations or caves, expect loading to get into them too.
There is fast travel. I admit there is some, but I don't. I think you can go a good couple of hours without doing any fast traveling if you find if you're like on a long mission or you find a planet you like exploring. Like if you want to explore New Atlantis, you don't have to go on a fast travel system for that. You can literally just walk around New Atlantis and you don't have to fast travel at all. It's a big city. I don't know. I find it a bit. When I'm putting in perspective to other games, like I love Skyrim, love Fallout, but it's like you've got these cities in Starfield that are almost the same size as like a whole game essentially, and you could just walk around them, or planets you could just walk around. And they don't get any credit for that just because it's not all seamlessly connected to each other. When it's a massive galaxy, of course, it's not going to be seamlessly connected. Whatever. Anyway,
so
keep going.
To avoid becoming overloaded, you constantly need to transfer the weapons, spacesuits, materials, and alien goo you collected between your inventory and your companions, or to from your ship's cargo hold. But maddeningly, you can't view the contents and capacities of both the giving and receiving container at the same time. You're just blindly dumping things out of one until you get a message saying the other was full. All the while, much of the screen is wasted on the overly large image of an item. It's a bizarre and aggravating step backward from Fallout 4, and the kind of thing they expect modders to remedy within the week of launch. I mean, is there a mod for that?
And there probably is a mod for it already, I imagine. But being overclubbered is actually really annoying. I kind of agree with that. That's like the most annoying thing is being overclubbered. Saying that, you can still play the game while overclubbered, and it doesn't really affect you that much. The only issue you really have is that if you run, your O2 goes down, and it can eventually give you like a bad cough or whatever. Because I had a bad cough because I was overclubbered for so long that I messed my lungs up. I had a bad cough for like a week in the game. But it's like, apart from that, if you have a jetpack, you can just jetpack around, and it's not too bad. It is annoying, but also I just found out this morning in the lodge, so like the lodge area, you have a bedroom. In your bedroom, you have a safe that has infinite storage.
That's how I've been storing all those resources and weapons, so I can go into the research room downstairs with all the resources to do research, build weapon mods, and spacesuit designs. It's that simple. And
you said you could put if you're overclubbered, you can give stuff to your companions, which you have a lot of different companions, which is good. You put them in your ship cargo hold. You have a captain's safe as well. I think overclubbered is annoying. I admit that it is a problem, but I think there is workarounds. I think there is ways around it. It's not the end of the world, honestly.
It's not really a huge deal, just as long as you learn how to walk, because that's how you build up your oxygen. Also, bear in mind that this seems to be no absolute limit, unless this goes into like 3,000 or some sort like that. But I've been carrying like a mass of 2,000 on me, over 200, and yet I can still navigate around the Atlantis. The only issue is that the only thing I can't do is doing fast travel, and it just kind of buggered me up on like certain planets, because you have to walk all the way back to the ship, and it would waste a lot of time.
Yeah, that is annoying. I think it's annoying you can't fast travel when you're overclubbered, but I get that. It's an issue that, again, this isn't like a Bethesda issue in general. I remember playing Skyrim back in the day and being overclubbered all the time. Like, I gotta throw away 6 of my rolls of cheese. God damn it. I can always be overclubbered. Yeah, exactly. I'm always overclubbered in these type of games all the time. So it is annoying. It's just a Bethesda problem. They need to fix that in general, I personally think. The big image and not being able to tell what's going where, I guess that's an issue. I never really thought of it that way. It felt very similar to playing Fallout 4 and Skyrim to me. I didn't even really think about the big images and all that stuff, to be honest. None of that even crossed my mind until you just said it.
Anyway,
but yeah, what do you think of overclubbered? Do you think that's an issue, or you seem to be cool with it?
Yeah. Well, I'm sure a lot of people would say that is the biggest issue for the game. So, yeah.
I agree with it. It is the biggest issue, but
at least you couldn't store any. At least you can store more than what you can allow yourself to be, because if you go to like a cargo on a ship or go to certain containers, you cannot put any more stuff there. So it's almost like saying, "Oh, it can't fit this there, and it would have been better if everyone's got pockets there." But please, bitch, please. You haven't even checked out like certain parts of clothing, especially like lots of clothes for women that don't often have pockets in them. So you have to like carry stuff with your phone sometimes. But I'm sure there are some parts of clothing for women that actually got pockets, and this is actually seen as a huge benefit.
I mean, that sounds realistic to me, that women don't have pockets in real life either. Like that's like, it seems like that seems tied in. What was I going to say as well? Oh yeah, so also you talking about storage space, cargo space. I got two ships. I got the one ship now is called. I renamed the Frontier to the Nakamura. It's I got 6 hubs. They're all wrestling themed, yeah. So there's 6 hubs, and it's got massive storage. And I want to have an increased cargo space, but it won't let me have an even bigger cargo space. I can carry about 500 mass in there, which isn't too bad. And then I got the Lynch, which is my fast ship, which is like small, but it has no cargo space. So it's very frustrating that when I'm using the Lynch to just get from planet to planet really fast and just do dogfighting in it, I can't put any more cargo space. I've run out of cargo space. I'm like, can't I just move all the cargo into my other ship and just leave it there? And then when I'm not using it, I can use the other ship. Like,
I've seen people building ships where they put all the cargo boxes there so they can travel with lots of resources in their ships, which can go as far as like 3,500, and it's usually for like outposts where you usually have farmed so many resources to craft with. And so I even built outposts where it just creates all the resources, put them in the storage boxes and put them into the transfer bay, and already ran out of space in it, which is good for like getting more perks for like payload, which is getting more cargo for the ship. But
how many outposts have you built? Because I've only built 1 so far.
5.
You built 5 outposts? Wow. What? I built 1.
Well, actually, it's just 4 actually, because there's. Oh, wow. I think I built the first one, which just collects cobalt and nickel, which is useful for creating magnets for XP gain. I tried to build another couple of outposts on another planet, and his attempt to get iron and aluminium, but didn't really work out. But I found out you can just like build outposts on separate planets in, I think it's in the Olympus system, and I just got one for iron and one for aluminium. But when I get those required resources for building all of the essentials, you pretty much like get all the rigs, gets into a lot of storage, and then you can put it into the transfer thing, and then you put in the ship if you have a launch pad.
That's awesome. I need to do that.
Remember, you need to link up the extractor to the storage and the transfer chest using Outlook links. And I didn't notice the first time. Yeah,
I haven't got a transfer chest. I need to do that. I've got them all attached to different chests and stuff. I got a little space base. It's got like a landing pad and everything on it. that's another reason. Like that's why I got 2 ships. I got the Lynch and the Nakamura. The Lynch can fit on the launch pad, but my Nakamura ship can't fit on the launch pad because it's too big. So I'm like, I need my little ship just to fly there. Anyway, mine collects aluminium and water. I think those are the 2 materials I'm collecting from that one planet. I'm on the cowboy planet, whatever it's the frontier.
Yeah,
I got my little outpost like a couple of miles away from like the frontier on top of a mountain, looking down at the frontier. It's pretty cool. And guess who I left there? Which crew member I left on that planet on his own to be left by himself?
What's that?
Never be seen again.
Oh, your adoring fan, is it?
Yeah, I left the adoring fan. It's like, I knew I'd find a use for you. I'll just leave you on this planet on your own, looking after this. Bye! I found a good use for the adoring fan. Who knew?
The game has got some memes associated with it. And speaking of which, you know this guy of Oyster, it kind of goes into a bit of the spoily things, but it's related to one of the quest lines. So if you go into Hope Tech, and there's a CEO called One Hope.
Right, okay.
He's voiced by, I imagine he's voiced by the same guy who voiced the Imperial Guards in Oblivion.
Oh, I love it. Stop there, Imperial scum. You are under arrest. Yeah, so should we get back to the... We've kind of got off topic here. When we were on the reviews, we've lost track. Overclubbered. I think Overclubbered's a bit of a pain in the ass, but it's not the end. I don't think it's worth deducting 3 points from a 10-point score because you can get Overclubbered. I don't think that's that much of a big deal. So there's one part...
There's one part of the main quest that's pretty repetitive too. You're sent to investigate a series of ancient structures, and it's annoying that what you do inside each one is completely identical. The wards are different and enticing enough for me to want to chase them all down, at least, but after the first few, I couldn't help but wish the Bethesda's designers had taken some inspiration from Breath of the Wild when it came to creating different puzzles for each one.
I don't even know what he means by that one. So, you collected artifacts, you go and find the artifacts. There's not really a puzzle going into the artifacts, or am I missing something?
Well, I think it's just assuming, like, oh, you just, like, grab your laser, might get some materials to collect the artifacts and kill enemies. But I think he's probably expecting too much from games like Breath of the Wild. Like, or even like Tears of the Kingdom, where you enter into the dungeon, and it usually presents you with a puzzle that you use with your mechanics. And it just assumes, like, oh, if this is the way the temples work, it should apply, the same would apply to Starfield, and they don't have that. So 7 out of 10. So it just seems to be expecting too much from those things. I think comparing Starfield and Tears of the Kingdom is ridiculous, honestly. I feel that they're totally different games. I think Tears of the Kingdom is one of my favorite games of all time now, and I think Starfield's up there as well. Tears of the Kingdom, you're a little elf boy, and like a devil, a devil guy you trapped is broken free and taken over the universe, and you can go into the sky and the ground will travel, and it's all puzzles and like sword fighting and all that. Starfield, you build spaceships, you fly around, and you shoot people. It's not the same game at all. I don't really know how you can compare the two. They're not very similar. They're like apart from them both being open worlds, there's not really much else very similar between the two of them. And I think they're both great games, but in different ways. Saying it needs to be more like Tears of the Kingdom is ridiculous. Sorry, that's just a much better comparative analysis would have been with No Man's Sky or even the Star Citizen, because these are very similar games. But comparing it to like Breath of the Wild, it's just like probably assuming something that doesn't actually fit within how the game basically works. Like Starfield is an exploration, where Zelda is all about puzzles in dungeons. So it's pretty much like comparing two different strands of like gameplay.
Yeah, I also was going to say what he's saying here as well, right? The main quest, you do the same thing to get your artifacts, right? If you play Skyrim, you do the same thing to get your dragon shouts. That's literally what it is. You click a button, you're like, ooh, there's a little writing on the wall. You click a button, and then it goes, now you can go through Shrudar. I was like, cool. And then you go to another cave, and there's more writing on the wall. Now you can do whatever the next showers, and it's literally they're all the same bloody thing. So I don't.
Anyway,
I love
must press
Skyrim.
on, actually.
Anyway,
Another highlight of Starfield is the sheer variety of spaceships flying through the settled systems, and the fact that they are so modular and customizable made me wish I put more points into starship design, so that I could mess up with it more and learn somewhat complicated rules of how to snap the pieces together to form a space-worthy vessel. Now that's a bit positive, actually. And it's actually quite a fun part of it.
He stopped moaning for 2 seconds to talk about something nice. Yay!
And he also added
I like starships.
This might be the best unlocking minigame I've ever seen in an RPG, and I put more skill points into it than I probably needed just to gain access to more challenging locks.
Oh, the lockpicking minigame is really good, yeah.
Yeah,
so there's
really
2 positives. I enjoy the lockpicking minigame, and I enjoy building space. I literally spent like 2 hours building spaceships last night. Hence why I was just talking about the Nakamura and the Lynch. They were like, basically, I decided to name them after wrestlers and make them. I wanted one which is like basically a flying house, and then the one that's like really fast and nimble. So I just wanted to have 2 different types of ships. That was like my whole idea. So shipbuilding is so much fun. It can be a bit frustrating when you're like trying to build something and it just gives you an error message. It's like, you can't do this. I'm like, why? Why not? It's like, you need a bigger reactor. It's like, I've already got the biggest reactor. What do you mean? It's like,
yeah,
it's annoying. That could be annoying. But I love it. I love I love the shipbuilding. Surprisingly, I haven't got any like criticism with the spaceship building. To be fair, but okay.
And there's a conclusion paragraph that it's never a great sign when someone recommends a game on the grounds that it gets good after more than a dozen hours, and that's very much the kind of game Starfield is. And I do recommend it. There are a lot of forces working against it, and a combination of disjointed space travel, non-existent maps, aggravating inventory management, and a slow rollout of the essential abilities nearly did it in. So I suppose this is a good time for you to do your rant.
Let's rant! Rant! 7 out of 10 is ridiculous. This is one of the most ambitious video games ever made, as far as I'm concerned. It sounds to me like he doesn't know what game he was playing. He keeps saying it, comparing it to stuff like Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild. As much as I love those games, they're totally different types of games. Those are puzzle, action, adventure games, whereas this is a first-person shooter with big environments which you can get to explore. There's a lot of conversations. It's like, as much as I love Tears of the Kingdom, the most conversation you get is Kia, Kia, yeah. That's like literally all your conversation options on in in Zelda. whereas in Starfield, you could be whoever you want, whatever you want, and there's so many different so many different storylines. And I totally disagree with it takes a couple of hours to get into it. I adored this game from the second I loaded it up. I was really into it. I think if you like a decent, I feel the story is decent. I think the world is really interesting. I think it helps that I'm a sci-fi person over like a fantasy person. I think this world captured me a lot more than the worlds of like Elder Scrolls and stuff, personally, but that might just be personal taste. I do agree with the fact that it could seem a bit disjointed and like there's like the loading screens can be a pain in the ass, but they don't really take away from my enjoyment. Honestly, I think the game's still fantastic in spite of that. Non-existent maps, it can be a little bit annoying, but if you use the LB button, everything comes up on the screen where you can go and stuff, so it's not that much of a big deal to me, personally, not having the maps. That's something they can add at a later date. I totally agree with this. I totally disagree with this review completely. 7 out of 10, I think, is absolutely ridiculous and insulting, to be honest. You can say I think if you've got an 8 or a 9 out of 10, it wouldn't be so bad. But like some games you've given 7 out of 10s to, and some games you've given 8 out of 10s to are like absolute trash garbage. Whereas this is a phenomenal game that is only going to improve. And I think you've been very harsh giving it a 7 out of 10. I think that's very, very disrespectful, very harsh to a very good, well-designed game, personally. But what do you think? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree?
Yeah, so I think, to be honest, it's just like Yeah, it's pretty harsh, and I think it just kind of like sets up a catalyst for like more reviews, like having a bit more negative views of the game, and even people like playing it. But I think, to be honest, like as for the IGN games, it's just like it just doesn't take people who like knows a great deal about like well, like it just seems like as if they just go for the whole appeal of the game, then like focusing on what really makes Starfield really good is the gameplay. But I think there's some like good points in this IGN review. But I think, to be honest, it's just a lot of what is really uncalled for, some sort. And I think 7 is a bit harsh, really.
I also think that this 7 out of 10 is essentially a clickbait choice. I feel like they've used this because they know people will argue about it, people will talk about it. Like, we're talking about it now. When would we be talking about the IGN review if they gave it a 9 out of 10 in our show? Would we be arguing about it if it was a 9 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10? No, we wouldn't. I think they've used this to try and get some kind of
outrage
culture, get some cheap clickbait outrage culture, and it's sad to me that they're using they're giving a game that's such a high quality, such a bad score just to get some cheap heat. It's sad, honestly, and disappointing.
Another 7 out of 10 review from a bigger website is Gamespot, and they begin with, and so somewhere along my 55 or so hours spent playing Starfield, I dropped the notion of finding that wonderful space adventure and accepted Starfield for what it is, a shooter-focused RPG in the traditional Bethesda framework that has its wild and fun moments, but one that's ultimately a mile wide and an inch deep.
That's bullshit. But okay, keep going.
Starfield's main quest is the most emblematic of the game's shortcomings. Despite romancing the idea of taking the stars to explore the great unknown, these narrative ambitions fall into the shallow stories that undersell the spacefaring premise.
I don't get that. I think the story's fantastic. I don't agree with that.
You like it?
I like the story in Starfield. Do you not? You're not a fan of the Starfield story?
Well, actually, there's some like interesting parts with it. When I know this might be a bit spoilery, but this is actually in the very beginning. I just went into the United Colonists Vanguard, and the first mission is that you go downstairs and you visit a museum, and you get to see all these beautifully crafted images that tells you the entire history. And to be honest, there's a lot to learn from this, and I just think how much the Bethesda is able to like take this lore and spin it into some interesting experiences. Even if it's not like a huge narrative as they expect, it still like allows for the interesting experience that goes through all those like really good things. But I think there's a lot of like criticism towards like the nuances of how the story applies to the game. But to be honest, I think there's theming around it and how they would implement it into the game has been like really good.
Yeah, I really like the story, and also I know that we're talking about the main story right now, but I think like some of the side quests are some of the best side quests I've played in these type of games.
Oh wow!
For example, I'm not going to go into much detail, but let's just say if you get arrested in the game, don't panic. Just go for it. Just do the mission that's attached to getting arrested, because that's probably the best side quest in the whole game, I would say. And without going into too much spoilers, you'll want to be arrested.
I also did the mission that involves talking to the guy who investigates a tree. So I had to go through a bunch of like quests, like collecting sensors and everything, and going around on the yo-yo just to like get all the credits from this guy. But one of the things I did is like I traveled over to to wherever that city, which is a western city. Just came over and I saw there's a huge, I think it was a heist or some sort playing out, and I just came over and persuaded the robbers to come out clean.
I've done that one, yeah.
I did that, and then I was introduced to 3-Star Collective, and that's how I found out just by doing that side quest. So it's just quite nice.
Was it the Rangers one where you had to go in? They're like taking over a bank. Yeah, I messed up the talking mini game, So I had to go in and kill them all. So it's hilarious how different it turned out.
It just reminds me of this mission and it's also when I've noticed the first bug that involves an item that flies out of a cabinet. I went to the shop and persuaded the woman to give me a tree branch so I can take it back to the guy to have more findings.
Not done that. Well, I've not done that one. I need to do that mission. As I was saying earlier, I've only experienced one bug. I've not really explained this during the video so far. The one bug I found is my character just when I went from first person to third person really fast, my character's head just disappeared for like a couple of seconds and the game froze. My guy had like no head. He just stood there like this with his guns in front of him with no head on him, and it was really weird and creepy. And that's the only bug I've experienced the entire game so far. That's like literally the only one, and I was about 10-15 hours into it. And I've not had any bugs since like that since.
Let's move on because
let us know about your bugs if you have any.
Yes.
Let us know in the comments below. Anyway, keep going.
Starfield picks up some of that slack when it comes to becomes a shooter, thanks to the satisfying gameplay and a roster of varied weapons to tinker with. While you shouldn't expect the feel of, say, Destiny 2, the shooting Starfield is by far the best Bethesda has offered.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I don't miss the VAT system at all from Fallout, honestly. It's nice that you kind of got the VAT system in ships and stuff, but I think the shooting itself is pretty decent. I think the AI is pretty stupid. Like, I could just walk into a room and just plow everyone down with, like, a shotgun, and I won't take any damage because the computer are a bit thick. But the shooting itself is quite fun. So, I agree with that.
Well, you've mentioned a VAT system. Is it the one that you focus on the part and shoot it down, right?
Yeah, they have that in the ship, but you don't have that in the shooting.
Yeah, because to get down on the ship, you have to get a perk that unlocks targeting. And then when you get to the ship, you hold down, press X, and you can hit the engines in order to steal, dock, and kill everyone to get a free ship. But
exactly. You get that one with Bounty Hunter, which is the one I went with to start off. So with Bounty Hunter, you get a load of space perks, ship perks. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
So, but yeah, I think the Fallout is interesting, but I think the VAT system is just like a bit flashy, and it just tries to go for a more gave it closer to Fallout. But so far, I really enjoy the gameplay. It's just like you get this whole gunplay of like Fallout and place it in the more Skyrim aspect of it. And instead of like using a pickaxe to mine minerals, you instead have a laser that not only like mines minerals out of it, but you can also use it to like mow down creatures and get more experience. So
definitely.
So I have to say the combat is more accessible than like Fallout.
I love the combat. The combat in this game is really fun. I don't understand why anyone was like, I think it's great. I think it's good. And so, as he said there, not as good as Destiny 2, but that Destiny 2 is literally a shooter. This isn't like an RPG. So the fact that the shooting is almost as good as Destiny 2 is quite high praise, I think. Next subject.
Impressively massive metropolises like New Atlantis or dense and interesting cities like Neon are peppered throughout the journey, but unlike in the Elder Scrolls or Fallout games, there isn't a build-up to discovering them. This is due in part to the absence of a larger overworld that can be used to create interest and stoke curiosity, leading to players to have that moment of unveiling new locations.
Kind of. It's not the same. It's not in the same way. I mean, I go on the world map and it's like, oh, this planet looks interesting. Oh, this city's called this. Oh, I wonder what this is going to be like. Click it, fast travel to it, and then you see your ship flying in and all that. I mean, you do get that kind of reveal. I guess you don't get the, whoa, what's that city like 10 miles in the distance we got to walk to? You don't get that, I suppose. But you do kind of get it from like seeing the planet from like space and stuff. It's like, ooh, what this planet looks interesting. Wonder what wildlife and what the environment's going to be like before I land on it, you know? So, I mean, it's a different level of intrigue, I think. I think that's a bit of an unfair comparison, really. And like, also, what do you expect? It's a space game. Like, you're not going to just... I don't know. I don't know. I personally think that's... whatever. Anyway, next.
Accounting for all of its ups and downs, the main thing that I wrestle with that Starfield is missing the overall sense of purpose. My favourite RPGs have their fair share of shortcomings and limitations, but the best ones always leave an lasting impact that comes through having a clear purpose.
Don't know what he means by that at all. Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
Do you get that? I don't get it. I don't get that.
I think
I personally feel a great purpose from this game. I feel like I'm a spaceman and I'm exploring the universe. I'm really enjoying the story and the world and the tech. To me, this just sounds like someone who likes fantasy games and doesn't like sci-fi, which is fair enough. People's fair choice, but I don't think that's something you should dock points on. Like I'm going, ooh, they fire fireballs and they say magic words and they do magic. Oh, I don't like that in my RPGs. 7 out of 10. Like, no, I don't think that's fair. Like, I just think this sounds like he doesn't like the setting or the world, which is like, I personally love the setting of the world. So,
I'm not really into a lot of fantasy RPGs, and to be honest, it's just a bit cliched. It's just like knowing, oh, which one of these RPGs I'm interested in. But with the Starfield, it's like, it's definitely a huge amount of escapism, and I think it's really fun. But I think, to be honest, when I went into it, it just feels more like Fallout 5 than the actual new original IP. Yeah,
I think it does. I feel like, I'm interested. What I also thought was interesting is that people, before this game came out, people were comparing this to No Man's Sky. I think this is a lot more like the Outer Worlds than No Man's Sky. If you play the Outer Worlds,
not yet. I did see it on like
Outer Worlds is great. It's a RPG like Fallout, and you can fly to. There's about 5 or 6 planets you can fly to, which are all big biomes. Essentially that. It's essentially the same kind of gameplay, apart from this one. There's 1,000 planets instead of 5 planets, and you can customize your ship, whereas you couldn't customize your ship in Outer Worlds, and you can only fly from planet to planet. I think they're very similar type of games. I think instead of one ginormous map, you have a couple of slightly smaller maps, which I'm fine with. It's like different hub. It's like 6 or 7 hub worlds instead of one big world. That's kind of the difference. Whereas this game is, instead of one big world, it's 1,000 smaller worlds, which I'm fine with.
Procedurally generated maps.
Yeah. But yeah. Some of them are procedurally, some of them are handcrafted, but the majority is procedural. But it's just interesting. I think it's just a different way of designing the game. I personally don't have a problem with it, but finally we get some positive reviews, because I'm fed up of listening to some negative Nellies.
Yeah, because I got a screenshot of like saying all the good and there's a lot of bad. So it's just like, well, the consensus is it's just like, oh, it's really intriguing, but it's an uninspired and underwhelming vision of space with shallow RPG mechanics. So
don't get that, but okay, whatever. No. I don't understand that at all. It just, as you said, it feels like Fallout 5 to me. It was like Fallout and Outer Worlds had a baby, and this is what we got. Yeah. Which is totally fine, because I like both of those games.
So, Attack of the Fanboy has given it 5 out of 5. I don't know how big the website is compared to the other bigger review sites, but Attack of the Fanboy, I heard much about it. So it says here, the main story itself is surprisingly brief, yet meaty, especially if you let yourself steep in the lore and enjoy the various visions you share with the members of a constellation.
Constellation, yeah. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, so far so good. Before we get too far into it, who's your favourite member of Constellation so far?
I think I just met, like, I think it's something beginning of N or some sort, but it's like, I don't want to get into too much spoilers, but while I was like trying to go through the caves or artifacts, I noticed there's like one girl who's just like that I get to work with to kill all the pirates in one of the caves, and I think she's pretty cool. Okay.
I like Sam Coe at the moment. He's pretty cool. He's like a cowboy guy. I need to go back and pick up Barrett. Barrett was really funny in the opening mission, and I have not gone back to get him yet, so I need to go get him back at some point. But Sam Coe is my favourite, I think. I was going to romance Sarah, and then I got bored of doing that, so now I just got Sam Coe on all my missions. Got a cowboy guy just hanging out with me the whole time. It's fun. Anyway, yeah, I think the characters are really cool. I like I think I'm really a fan of a lot of these, what they're called, companions. Even the annoying fan I found him funny for like an hour or so. before I dropped him on the planet on his own to die.
So in addition to the story is briefing, it gets intense, philosophical, and diversive, and is an interesting dystopian sci-fi vision of an alternative future.
It's dystopian. I kind of get it. It's kind of a bit dystopian, but I don't think it's kind of optimistic. I don't know. Do you think it's dystopian? Do you see it as a dystopian world? I feel like it's kind of positive outlook of the world. In some ways it is, yeah, but in other ways, I'm like, it feels like it just feels like futuristic. I think
the fair thing to say is just more of a Wild West. You did get some forms of anarchy, but in some places it's just well established too. So,
well, I was saying to my brother, who he has never seen anything to do with Starfield, and explaining to him like what the planets are like. So when you got the one planet that's like the Citadel from Mass Effect, then you got another planet that's like the Red Dead Redemption planet, and then you got another planet that's like Cyberpunk 2077. This is like, oh, you just realize a lot of these planets are got like similar to other stuff. So yeah. So I think there's a lot of different variety. I don't think it's all dystopian. I think some of it is, yeah. Like, I haven't got to Neon yet, and everyone says Neon's quite dark and grim, so I haven't got there yet, but I'm excited. Anyway, yeah. Next.
With people had anxiety about the potential of bugs, and I can be the first to tell you that I've only encountered about 6 bugs, none of which broke a playthrough, and were usually funny and benign.
Same. So far. I haven't played it. Well, did he say how long he's been playing it for? He doesn't. The other one said 55 hours. The other one said 70. So I'd say probably about the same, I'd imagine. If they got the review codes about the same time.
It's okay to be in awe of a game's mechanics and what you can do while being frustrated by technical limitations. But it's also valid to enjoy references or details that speak to you out as a player.
Yeah. I agree. I feel like we're still not quite there yet that we can have seamless worlds where we can go in and out. I know they do it in No Man's Sky, but it's not the same system. So I think the limitations of the consoles and the PC is still not quite at the level where I think Starfield 2 is going to be a lot more seamless and a lot more. Yeah, I think that's fair. There's the technical limitations. I get that with the 30 frames a second thing, which that's coming up now. So
yeah, that's why. Then that's what it leads to this last sentence that. There are compromises of frame rate for console players, which is locked at 30 frames per second, but you still find a shockingly stable layered experience. There's so much to do it. Boggles the mind. Just kind of looks a bit, yeah. Okay.
I know it's 30 frames a second. Everyone would prefer 60, which I get that. That's fair. I've not had any. I've not really thought about it since I started playing it. I'm just enjoying the game. I haven't really gone, oh, this frame rate is atrocious. Oh no. I've just been like, oh, okay. I've not even really thought about the frame rate, honestly. I've just been enjoying it.
Me neither. Because when I play Destiny on like the PlayStation 4, it's like 30 frames per second, and that doesn't bother me. Yeah. But it's just like
I'm old,
huge.
I like it.
But when you have like games like say Call of Duty that runs at 60 frames per second, people have been treating it as if it's a huge norm. But to me, I think the 30 frames per second is just kind of complements the whole experience. Like, if you want 60 frames per second, build a much more powerful PC and play Starfield on that. You also get more. You'll also get access to all the mods. So, at least on the Steam Workshop. So, it's there. But then, if you're going to play the console, it's pretty much what you get, and you still get a good experience out of it.
Yeah, I agree. I think the 30 frames per second, I know it seemed like a deal breaker to everyone before the game came out, but honestly, after playing it for about 20, 30 hours, I haven't had much of an issue with the frame rate at all, to be honest. Yeah, I prefer it to be 60, but I don't think it's a deal breaker, personally. Honestly, I'm really enjoying the game in spite of that. Maybe it's because we're old. Like, I remember my day playing, like, NES and N64 games, so they're never even... Frame rates weren't even a thing back then when we were used to play those games on our little TVs that are, like, blurry as hell, not even HD. I'm used to playing non-HD games in, like, 20 frames a second, so whatever, I'm not that bothered, personally.
So...
we have a nice... positive / negative. I mean, it's a 9 out of 10, so it's kind of in the between So this should be better than the IGN and GameSpot and super negative reviews, but probably won't be as positive as the previous one, I imagine.
You're talking about Dualshockers, which is usually like a bit more PlayStation-centric place, but it's definitely still gives a more positive review. And it begins with, outside of two governing bodies that have tried to bring order to the collective systems, the United Colonies and the Three-Star Collective, the galaxy is a lawless place akin to the Wild West of 18th century US. And it's just like what you're saying.
That's true. Yeah, I never thought of it that way, but yeah, I guess that's true.
I have.
Yeah. I feel like the United Colonies are everywhere, though, right? And then obviously you get the Three-Star Collective occasionally, but I literally feel like everywhere you go, you see the United Colonies. I feel like they're like... Yeah. I guess so. I guess it is a Wild West when you go further out, I suppose. I haven't gone that far out, so maybe when I get to like a settlement that's like 200 million miles away, maybe it'll be a bit more crazy.
It's a bit like Star Wars, only the Wild West references are more apparent than the Star Wars.
Oh yeah, I mean, as I said, like literally the one planet is literally the Wild West. It's hilarious. Like you're in Firefly all of a sudden, just suddenly in like a Wild West world out of nowhere. Like, oh okay. I guess I literally put a poncho on and a cowboy hat for my character when I walked into that area. It's like, better get in character.
Yeah. So without spoiling any of it, Starfield's main storyline is possibly the strongest part of an entire game. Bethesda has delivered something truly special here, and I felt it with every twist, turn, and gut-wrenching decision made along the way.
I agree. Yeah. I'm much different to GameSpot. It's like, story's poo, I don't like it. It's sci-fi, I don't like sci-fi. Whereas this is actually like an a good take. It's a good story. I enjoy it. Yeah, good sci-fi.
Also, that every mission and character interaction feels so well thought out that even the most mundane tasks, from collecting debts for the Crimson Fleet Thug to interrogating the locals for information on the target, feel compelling, with the promise of some interesting tidbit or backstory around every corner.
I agree. I mean, I was saying earlier that the side quests are some of the best stuff in this game, and the fact that the side quest is so like, again, without spoiling it, if you get arrested, that is the best side quest in the game, and I also think that side quest literally could be in a whole game in itself. Just that one side quest could be literally an entire game. That's how detailed and crazy good it is.
That's you talking about any Elder Scrolls game. You begin in a prison and then you start off.
Yeah, but I'm saying when it comes to this game, if you get arrested, do the side quest because the side quest is bloody fantastic. But yeah, so saying like you said about details and stuff, that's a side quest. A lot of people will never ever do that side quest and they miss out on it. And the fact that that's so detailed is incredible to me. Yeah, I think there's some of the little details in this game is actually insane, and I really respect it. Anyway, next.
Outside space itself, the thrill of dogfighting space pirates is a tad underwhelming. The mechanics of exchanging blades with enemy ships as they fly past me, then flipping my ship around to chase them down and turn them into space stars is fun. It just isn't anything special.
I kind of agree with that, as much as I want to disagree. I like space combat, but I feel like I have to kind of search for it. And now I'm like, oh, I'll go into space and do some space combat. Like, it's like, I don't know, I don't feel like it's like, you don't need to go to space, really. Not very often, anyway. It's essentially like a...
Well, it's just, it's a kind of area they... Like, if there's... Normally, anywhere in the game, you don't need perks for anything. But... Yes. When you start to like go into if there's one area of the game where you feel it needs to be improved more, then sorry, gosh, I'm getting a little bit mixed up. But
it's all right.
But yeah, it's just the space dogfighting is definitely one area you need to spend more on perks, and that's where that's where that you get enough of them to make the fighting more enjoyable, and that includes improving the weapon systems, the maneuvering, and even like getting more speed. But I think the piloting perk is by far one of the best perks in the game, because not only like you get access to ships of bigger reactors, but you also have much better maneuvering in the game. So if you want to trying to think of which perk you can go for, start with that one.
Well, that's why I started off with a Bounty Hunter, because Bounty Hunter has all the space stuff, all the space perks straight away, which is great. Yeah, I like the space fighting. I think it's fun. I just, as you said, it's a bit underwhelming in part. They could do more with it. And maybe they might expand on it in the DLC and stuff. Maybe add some new features and stuff to the space combat. I've only managed to hijack one ship so far, and I want to hijack some more, because that's fun. Yeah, I think it's a really cool little system, this dogfighting, but it's a little bit underwhelming. I do kind of agree.
I kind of struggle to like shoot and dock ships, and I didn't realize there's a targeting system. I got that, but even so, it's still difficult to shoot down at enemies and steal ships. But
also, there's a little.
But I did steal a ship, and that was when I was exploring the planet, found the Crimson Fleet ship, decided to hijack it and kill all the members there. And I got
That's what I did. I did the same thing. What was I going to say? Yeah. Also, there's a little thing I found out earlier today. If you shoot the asteroids, you can actually collect materials from them. If you're in an asteroid field, you can get iron and aluminium and whatever stuff from the asteroid. So if you lower materials and you don't have an outpost or anything, just shoot some asteroids. You might get some cool materials out of it. And yeah, it gives you more things to do in space, which is cool. I keep wanting to find, like, I still haven't found like a cruise ship yet, which I really want to find a cruise ship and explore it. Because like they showed them in the what's it called, the direct, and I haven't found one yet, which I'm really excited to do at some point.
So
anyway,
mentions that the biggest letdown was that I couldn't seamlessly fly my ship from one planet in the system to the next. Navigating between systems and planets and landing on a planet are all locked behind cutscenes.
Well, yeah, I'm like cutscenes or loading screens. It's kind of how you want to take it, because they're there to cover a loading screen, really.
I did mention there's cutscenes of you flying around and even like entering planets. And there's also like loading screens, which is completely different from the cutscene.
No, but they use the cutscenes as a way of the loading screens behind the cutscenes as well. They're like not just they're there to help cover the transition between the two.
Okay, so
I would assume anyway. But yeah, the loading screens are a thing. Also, have you been using the photo mode in this game at all?
Yeah, I've been taking like about 8 photos, and they did appear in loading screens too. So
I was about to say, yeah. So if you haven't used the photo mode yet, check it out. Take some photos, and then they'll be in your loading screen, so it gives you something to look at when you're loading between planets and loading between the areas. It's nice to have pictures of your journey so far. I thought that was important to mention to people who are new to the game, which people are playing it today, and I forgot to mention that it's literally launched today officially. We've been playing it a week, but like there's some people who are literally playing it today for the first time, which is really exciting. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
So, you can feel the stark difference between the carefully manicured streets of the United Colonies flagship New Atlantis and the dangerous slums and back alleys of Neon City's drug-infested society. And yeah, this is pretty much what we talked about, so that's been mentioned there. But
they're cool, good, nice little cities.
But whatever mild disappointment I felt toward them initially, but not unlike spacecraft travel mechanics, quickly faded into irrelevance in the face of the excellence the game accomplishes in other areas. It just ends with, Starfield is truly something special that delivers a new standard for space RPGs sure to be talked about for the next decade.
I hope so.
I
hope so. I hope people don't just go, oh, I got 7 out of 10 for my gen, I'm not playing it. I hope people give it a chance. It is a really fun game.
I was going to go through, like, as we agree, probably better if we wrap this up a bit quickly. So there's a trusted review that says, like, 4 out of 5, saying that it hasn't quite reached the high expectations for space exploration, with technical limitations and countless bland planets, making the journey into the stars a rather mundane one.
Yeah.
It's also a review that just kept mentioning about how 90% of the planets are lifeless, and it just repeats it again and again in the article as if it's the biggest deal.
I don't understand the logic with that. It's like, yeah, it's trying to be realistic. 90% of the planets would be lifeless. We haven't found life on any other planet outside of Earth our real universe. We've been trying to find life out. So you're just assuming that every planet's gonna have life. That's just so dumb. And then you say that, like you go to a planet that's got no life on it, and then, like a spaceship will fly in, like in the distance. Like, oh, there's a bad guy who just landed there, or there's like a mining, or someone's hidden, like there's like a hidden base there, or like a mining facility. There's always something to do on these planets, even if they're lifeless. There's always something to do on every planet. I tried to find a lifeless planet with nothing on there, just so I could build a base and have a base where I'm not going to get attacked. Every time I got there, another spaceships have, like landed like 10 miles, like a couple of miles away from me. I'm like, go away! I want to be left alone.
Well,
yeah. So,
well, they said they also don't like the overcumbent feature and the poor stealth approach.
yeah, I said that.
But it does say, like, Bethesda has proudly called Starfield its most polished game yet, and that looks to be the case. From my experience, I only saw one noticeable glitch during my playthrough where the NPC's legs morphed in through the ceiling. The game crashed on numerous occasions, generally during the fast loading screen, or when I opened up the settings menu shortly after loading the game. This forced me to reset the Xbox Series S, but because of the frequent autosave feature, I rarely lost much progress, if any at all.
Fair. So are we gonna just wrap the reviews up there? I guess.
Well, the PC Gamer, there's a 3.5 out of 5, and there's some positive things, and likes the outposts and shipbuilding, which says that it will undoubtedly attract a certain player who's more interested in building rather than exploring. The only downside is that they're resource-heavy systems, essentially late-game activities to delve into once you acquire appropriate funding. But it does complain about the animations and artificial intelligence. But it did have a good comparative analysis where it mentions that cataloging Alien Former recalls No Man's Sky's gameplay, but here lies a very major difference between Starfield and other space games with an emphasis on discovery. So, and then they just mentions about Elite Dangerous, No Man's Sky, and Outer Wilds. I think it's Outer Worlds of some sort. But anyway, it's just it allows for travel between worlds without relying on fast travel. So, yeah. But
excuse me.
But then there's more. There's Polygon, which doesn't give a score, but it just mentions that Starfield can feel inspired in a way that's certainly not be intentional. I would estimate that I struggled to stay interested in Starfield for the first 15 hours of my campaign, completing fetch quests from the constellation and hoping to fund derivative handcrafted planets to procedurally generate spaces of not much. And then, there we go. Bethesda's Peter Hines claimed that the game doesn't even begin until you finish the main quest. I disagree. This is a game that started well before I finished the main story in the fleeting interaction of the coffee-craving stranger, or doing a heist on a space cruise, or the accidental foray into the lonely hallways of a ship whose generations of passengers thought that all was lost, only to find humanity had survived. But Starfield buries these adventures so deep beneath their layers of artificially and behind stolen momentum that they become lost in all of this ultimate game.
Okay. I don't know that. Okay. There's a lot. That's basically what he's saying. There's too much stuff. I think that's pretty much what he's saying, yeah.
And I just want to wrap this up with Game Informer's 8.5 out of 10. Character dialogue and storytelling is top notch with novel personalities and interactions at every step of the way. And I found navigating Starfield obtuse, both in the moving around the giant map of stars and its UI and systems. Figuring out how to do the basic tasks like selling excess inventory, modifying my ship, adjusting crew assignments, or reaching a particular star system often made me scratch my head.
Okay. Good for you.
But anyway, I think
it didn't make me scratch my head.
But I think it's just there's a bunch of reviews that averages around 8 out of 10. But then if you think about it, it's just pretty much 4 out of 5. But so far it's just so it's all right.
So So this is our review roundup. So we were just looking at all the different reviews. I think it's interesting. As we said at the beginning, 86 on average on Metacritic. We both said that we thought it'd be higher. I thought 94, you thought 96. Either way, we're a bit off. I'm a bit disappointed that it didn't get a 90 or higher because I think it deserves it personally. But what do you guys think of our review roundup? And let us know in the comments below. Now we're going to move on to our topic of the show, which is Starfield again. But it's going to be trying to do it briefly, I guess. It's our first impression.
I think to be honest, that we could like save this for. We already did the initial impressions in the first episode of the Space Skyrim, so we can save it for it. But in the paragraph, we can still do some paragraphs there where. To me, I think this feels really close to Fallout, and only it has more like shipbuilding and exploration. But I think there's a huge annoyances, and there's even like some of the gameplay that I don't seem to agree with. So I think it's just like, yeah, it's alright. It's fun, but it just does make me question whether this is an ultimate Bethesda game, which is basically another Bethesda game, only is set in space.
Space Skyrim, as we call it.
I would call it Fallout New Atlantis, like Fallout New Vegas.
Oh God, no. But me personally, so I mean, this is going to be basically my mini review, but we're going to do a proper review next week. But we've had another week to play it, and we've really dug our like teeth into it. But so far, this is my favorite Bethesda game ever. Mainly because of the setting. I love sci-fi. I'm more of a sci-fi guy. If you say, do you prefer Lord of the Rings or do you prefer Star Wars? I would always prefer to watch the original Star Wars trilogy. I'm a Star Wars guy. I love my sci-fi. I love blasters. I love the idea of being my own version of Han Solo or Star-Lord and just flying around the galaxy in my ships. I think that is really like the coolest thing ever. It's a fantasy. It's like a fantasy I've always had since like being a kid. I think this game is fantastic. I really enjoyed the story. I like the setting. I like the world. This is the first Bethesda game I can see myself spending thousands of hours in. I would basically play a couple of hours of Skyrim, a couple of hours of Fallout, but never get that entrenched in it. I think this is the one I'm going to get really, really deeply entrenched in and play for hours and hours and hours and weeks and months and years. And I'm going to just keep playing it. I really love it. And yeah, I think people who are comparing it to Tears of the Kingdom are just arses at this point. I think Tears of the Kingdom is one of my favorite games of all time, but how you could compare Starfield and Tears of the Kingdom is literally comparing apples and oranges here, and I think you can't really compare the two. I think they're both fantastic, and in a year, the fact that we have both these games in 2023, plus we're getting Spider-Man at the end of the year, plus a new Mario game, and loads of other really good games coming out this year as well, is insane. I mean, 2023 will be the year would be known as one of the greatest years in video game history because it had Starfield and Tears of the Kingdom come out at the same time. And I don't think you really need to compare the two, personally. I would give this a 10 out of 10 at the moment. I think it's a fantastic game. It does have flaws, don't get me wrong. Me saying 10 out of 10, I'm not saying it's perfect, but I am saying it is once in a generation game. This game will be the standard bearer for the next 10 years when it comes to these type of games. And you know, it has the issues with like too many loading screens, too much fast travel. The space combat is not really up to the level it should be. But if you take that away and you just look at the pure ambition of this game and the pure scale and the amount of stuff you can do and how much world it is, if you think of it just as a Bethesda RPG, this is one of the best Bethesda RPGs ever made, and it's a masterpiece. And that is my say. How about you, Alice?
To me, at the moment, it's 9 out of 10, but there's some parts of it that just makes me feel like it's a 8 out of 10 experience, because I think there are some parts of it which kind of like slows down or is like counterintuitive. But I think once you get through this steep learning curve, it just gets really enjoyable. And I can still say I'm still addicted to it, and I put so much hours into it. So I think to me it's a 9 out of 10 at the moment.
for sure. I mean, 9 out of 10 times, I think that's fair. If you said 7, I'd have to come to Cornwall and have a word with you.
This is definitely not 7 out of 10 for me, because I'm not IGN for a start.
Yeah,
I'm not complaining too much about space, because to be honest, that space aspect of it is just so good, so addicting too, because it just like offers escapism, and this is what I enjoy most about the game. Unfortunately for me, I just had to deal with the main quest signs, which I have to do in order to get more experience and more rewards, which is a shame because I would rather like explore planets, like find ways to get more experience and loot, rather than just having to go through a bunch of fetch quests.
I also wanted to mention as well with this game, I should have said this earlier, is that I think the main issue with the reviews is that they had 2 weeks to beat the game, and they had to beat the game, they had to beat the story, they had to just do this, do that, and all this. This is a game you should enjoy, you should savor, and just take your time with. There's no rush. It's not going anywhere. Spend the next year playing it if you have to. Just play it, take your time with it. I mean, that's how you should play this game, is that you should just take your time and just do what you want and have fun with it. It's like, ooh, I'm going to build my spaceship today. Ooh, I'm just going to go on this random side quest. Ooh, I'm just going to explore this planet. Or I'm just going to build a settlement and just chill and spend hours doing that. This is a game that you should not rush. And I think that is the main problem when they give 7 out of 10 reviews and stuff. They've tried to rush the whole game, and that's not really how you should play it, personally.
So
that's what I think.
Let's finish up the show with the last question. And this is easy. So, the last question I'm going to ask you is, are you seriously considering Starfield to be your game of the year?
Yeah, that's a tricky one, isn't it? Well, okay, so let's preference this. Okay, so last year, my game of the year was Elden Ring, and I absolutely adored Elden Ring, and I thought that game was absolutely fantastic. I would say I prefer Starfield to Elden Ring at this moment in time. But my current frontrunner for Game of the Year is Tears of the Kingdom, because that game is one of the best games I have ever played, ever. I think it literally is my favorite game of all time. We're a week into Starfield. I think it's a bit hard to compare my favorite game of all time to a game I've been playing for a week. That being said, any other year, this would be my game of the year, but I don't know if it beats Tears of the Kingdom quite yet. It's the fact that I'm even considering it in the same category as Tears of the Kingdom means that this is a good game in my eyes, because Tears of the Kingdom would literally beat anything hands down usually. And the fact that these two are out, and the fact that I went from Tears of the Kingdom, I literally just finished it last week 100%, and now I'm playing this, and now I'm going to be spending the next 6 months playing this, is insane to me. But also special shout out to stuff like Hi-Fi Rush and there's other games I can think of. I'm sure there's other games that came out this year.
It's not Redfall, is it?
Oh yeah, Redfall, definitely game of the year. No, definitely not. No, what I forgot to say now. Hi-Fi Rush is a really good game, and any other year that would be in my top. That'd be in my game of the year discussion. It's not going to be, but it's a very good game, and I really loved it when it first came out for sure. But yeah, Tears of the Kingdom is the front runner, but maybe Starfield will take it over. It depends if I'm still playing it by December, which I probably will be if I feel the way I do now about it.
It does have a new game plus though, so you might be probably playing towards Christmas anyway.
It's so, as I said, it's so hard comparing apples and oranges. These games are so different. How you can compare the two is ridiculous to me. And Spider-Man's coming out this year as well. And I love Spider-Man. Spider-Man 1 and Spider-Man 1 and Spider-Man. I know you're not a fan. Spider-Man 1 and Spider-Man Miles Morales were my favorite PlayStation games of all time. Like PS4 games anyway. The reason I own a PS5 is literally for Spider-Man. I think when I've beaten Spider-Man, I might even sell it because I don't use it at all. Just collected dust. Honestly, and literally it's just for Spider-Man. And then Mario's coming out this year as well. They got you can turn into an elephant, you can grappling hook, and you can all do all this other crazy stuff. So that game looks incredible as well. So this year is insane. 2023 is nuts. when it comes to the game of the year. Do you consider this a possibility for your game of the year?
Well, it's kind of a bit hard because normally I was thinking like Starfield, it would have been like my game of the year, but after playing it for some time, I have my doubts. So I'm not sure that's likely to be a game of the year, but it's a serious contender, of course. But I do find it more accessible than Tears of the Kingdom, and I prefer Starfield to that because, well, Tears of the Kingdom is like quests and has a lot more fun with it, but I haven't really got into it as much as I did with Starfield. But maybe it's because it's like really familiar with Skyrim and also the gameplay mechanics. I think it is more fun that way than with Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah, I prefer Tears of the Kingdom at the moment, but I've already started playing it. As I said in the review roundup, I think if you're going into Starfield thinking you're getting No Man's Sky, you're going in the wrong place. If you're going in there thinking you're going to get Outer Worlds or Fallout, but in space, then you're going to be happy. I think it's a very Bethesda Obsidian RPG game, but just bigger scale. I don't think I think it's a very good game. As you said, yeah, as you're familiar with Bethesda games, you're more familiar with the mechanics, which makes sense. I totally get that. Yeah, I think this year's game of the year is going to be so hard to pick. It's going to be a tricky one, and yeah, and then there's no doubt that we're probably going to get like a Vampire Survivors type game as well towards the end of the year. Something that's going to come out of the blue and it's going to completely blow our minds as well, like we did last year. Like Vampire Survivors came out of nowhere and was pretty much our game of the year from pretty much last year, apart from Elden Ring. So there's no doubt we're going to get like a surprise hit out of nowhere as well, I imagine. And Forza's still coming out as well, which won't be my game of the year, but I'm sure it'll be a lot of people's game of the year because it's a good racing game.
That's crazy. So much games in autumn.
This year is nuts. This year is absolutely mad. This year is. The fact that we got Starfield and Zelda in the same year is mad, and the fact we've got all these other games coming out as well is even more crazy. Also, special shout out to the PS3 Trust guys. I'm sure they would be saying Helldivers 2 and maybe Resident Evil 4. They're not super fans of Resident Evil 4, but they like Resident Evil. Those games are also fantastic as well. Also, we have Metroid Prime Remastered this year as well. Bloody hell. Oh my god, this year is mad. Keep going.
I think the beginning of the year is amazing.
This year is insane. And Star Wars Jedi Survivor, which I haven't played, but I think it's really good.
Oh, good news though is one of the critics are digging into this game. Starfield's got a very positive outcome from Steam, so it looks like people are enjoying the game.
Yeah, also we probably should have mentioned it during the show, it's selling very well. I don't have the exact figures, but it's doing very well, especially considering that most people, I think I had over 1 million people playing it on Xbox and Steam, and that was early access, so people paying £100 each to play it. That's just mad. Which is brilliant. Yeah, what do you guys think of Starfield? I know it's been a very Starfield-centric episode, and it probably will be for the next couple of weeks, I imagine, because that's probably the biggest news that Xbox is going to have this year. We might probably talk a bit of Forza when it comes close to that, but imagine this podcast is going to be a lot more Starfield for the next couple of weeks. But what do you guys think of Starfield? Let us know in the comments below. Have you played it yet? Are you downloaded it as we speak because it came out today on Game Pass? Let us know in the comments below what you think. Love to hear your feedback. I'd love to hear like what kind of reviews our viewers have, and if you agree or disagree with me. Are you secretly an IGN member? Let us know in the comments below with a 1 out of 10 review. I usually respect IGN, but just that review really annoyed me. It's really rattled me. I don't know why. It shouldn't. I shouldn't care, but it just annoyed me that it's really took down the Metacritic and that people are using it as a weapon to have a go at Xbox again. It's just like, you didn't have to do that. It's really not necessary, but there you go. One of those things. Anyway, off on the tangent. That was Xbox the Box episode 68. Next week is the sexy episode 69. Alright. Haven't got anything planned for 69.
Probably more Starfield, because I
probably
think
more
we just
Starfield.
put our short reviews there, but I think it will be in like Well, I think I can't remember the name of it, but it's just so long ago.
Yeah, this has been a long episode. It's been a fun episode, though. Definitely loved that. Let us know your reviews for Starfield in the comments below. And until next time, too sweet. Later, Space Nords.
Bye!
You're finally awake.
Bye!
Thank you for listening to the X Marks the Box podcast. Follow us at X Marks Box on Twitter or X Marks the Box on YouTube. And follow us on all audio podcast services. Thanks for listening.